I'm an original co-sponsor of this bill, and I've noted some of the comments here, and I believe we should take a step back and ask ourselves, what do we seek in our republic regarding individual rights, liberties, and freedoms? I mean, do you believe in those core tenets of our republic or not? We have an opportunity before us with this bill to push back against it. The ranking member mentioned a sweeping attack. Yes, this is what we have suffered. We have suffered as a nation a sweeping attack against equality. That's exactly what we're fighting against. Another colleague mentioned oppression and degradation. It's exactly what we're pushing back against. This is a bill that eliminates government-sponsored oppression of individual rights, liberties, and freedoms.
Hey guys, my name is Modi and you're welcome to Modi Speaks. In today's video, we're going to be talking about this congressional hearing that started off addressing the obvious discrimination that took place when FEMA workers deliberately skipped the homes of Republican voters following the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Everyone was shocked during the interrogation when FEMA worker, a whistleblower, truthfully admitted that they followed instructions from the higher authorities and systemically discriminated against Trump supporters. They skipped the home with American flag and refused to give them help because those people are Trump supporters and they are considered dangerous. Now, this atrocious discrimination is coming from a respected government agency that is supposed to cater to all Americans, irrespective of race, gender, political affiliations, or religion, etc. FEMA, just like so many other government agencies under the Joe Biden administration, is infested with DEI. They believe it is okay to prioritize a certain group of people over another, and that was why they gave their workers strict instructions to discriminate against Trump supporters during the Hurricane Helene. Now, thankfully, Republicans won the presidential seat and they are immediately making arrangements to get rid of this systemic form of oppression and discrimination called DEI. And they proposed a bill to end diversity, equity, and inclusion. But a bunch of Democrats are having serious meltdown over this bill. Let's watch.
This bill, titled the Dismantling DEI Act, is an utter disgrace. Having sat and read the text in preparation for today's markup, I have yet another example to tell my constituents about the unserious work of the Republican Party. Now, I'll work with anyone serious about progress who wants to center the people who call this country home. This isn't it. The Committee on Oversight has the broadest jurisdiction in the entire House of Representatives to investigate any topic it chooses, but we are debating legislation that denies the sky is blue, water is wet, and racism is real. The major provision of the bill says to ban anything that acknowledges racism. And a few pages later in the exact same bill, there are multiple provisions discussing the presence of racism. This Republican approach is as predictable as it is nonsensical. On one hand, they're saying that racism does not exist. On the other hand, they are saying there is rampant reverse racism. Well, how do you reverse something that never existed in the first place? Riddle me that.
Now, I'm sure she's practically misinterpreting what that bill says on purpose, because that bill never said racism doesn't exist. She is just twisting the words in that bill to push her narrative. Now, I personally went through the bill, I read it, and I agree with it. The bill is called the Dismantle DEI Act of 2024. And what it seeks to do is to remove and prohibit any government agency from funding programs, offices, or leaders related to DEI, including in higher education. This bill will stop the federal government from funding DEI-related offices in all federal agencies, thereby ending government-sponsored discrimination. Because we all know that DEI is a destructive ideology that breeds hatred and racial division. So tax dollars from American taxpayers should not be utilized in funding and spreading this divisive ideology. She is obviously twisting the words on that bill, but I'll leave a link to the bill itself so you can go read it for yourself.
While this Republican policy may have a new name, it's the same old tired game. Look, y'all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. Do you all know your history? Do you know American history? The original Constitution counted enslaved individuals as 3/5 of a person. During World War II, the federal government forcibly relocated and incarcerated 110,000 Japanese Americans. The FHA practiced redlining in the 1930s and 60s to deny mortgages to black Americans, which is why we have a racial wealth gap today. I could go on. The GI Bill, which is supposed to be race neutral, denied access to black Americans, denying them equal access to education and housing benefits, which is why we do not have generational wealth. Don't talk to me about merit when those black servicemen fought for our freedoms. And I'd also just like to take a personal note of privilege to say, please keep Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s name out of your mouths. Yes. Your perversion of his words and his mission when his children have asked you to stop invoking his name and perverting his work when he was a proud and unapologetic black man fighting for equality for black Americans and all marginalized people. So you all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. But I'm not surprised that you would deny American history. What I am, though, is committed. Committed to speaking truth to power, committed to standing up for marginalized communities and vulnerable people, committed to ensuring that everyone has equal opportunity to buy a house, to work a job, to pursue higher education, and to live in a society that is fair and just. A colleague across the aisle invoked the phrase of, we must do everything to stop government-sponsored oppression. Well, I've just enumerated numerous examples, which is exactly why we have legislation and an executive order to reverse this harm. And that is why I'm committed to opposing this bill and urge my colleagues to do the same.
Guys, this is crazy. She is mad that a representative quoted Martin Luther King because that representative is white, not black. I want you to analyze that for a minute. This woman is a representative, by the way. She is supposed to be representing black and white people and other people, people from other races, people from every race. But she is here segregating and prohibiting white people from using quotes made by a black man. Wow.
I'm an original co-sponsor of this bill, and I've noted some of the comments here. And I believe we should take a step back and ask ourselves, you know, what do we seek in our republic regarding individual rights, liberties, and freedoms? I mean, do you believe in those core tenets of our republic or not? We have an opportunity before us with this bill to push back against it. The ranking member mentioned a sweeping attack. Yes, this is what we have suffered. We have suffered as a nation, a sweeping attack against equality. That's exactly what we're fighting against. Another colleague mentioned oppression and degradation. It's exactly what we're pushing back against. This is a bill that eliminates government-sponsored oppression of individual rights, liberties, and freedoms in the land of the free. Freedom of opportunity, not result.
Perfectly said. He addressed this beautifully. I mean, this woman should be ashamed of herself. She is that same senator who said that Walgreens and Walmart are racists for leaving black neighborhoods after being robbed blind in black neighborhoods. She is horrible. But this next representative we're going to be looking at is even more horrible than her.
Many of you know that I practice law, but some of you don't realize that I actually was a business major out of Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. And the emphasis that I got in my business degree was on finance. And as I traveled the country campaigning this election cycle, one of the things that I talked about was this idea that in finance, we always promote this idea of diversity. If you know anything about a portfolio, the one thing that you want to do is make sure that it's as diverse as possible, because at times certain stocks will perform better than others, and they will exemplify various strengths and weaknesses. And together, a diverse portfolio is usually what any good finance person would promote. They wouldn't promote that you solely invest in vanilla wafers, believing that that is going to be the strongest portfolio, but instead they may want to add some chocolate cake and some Twinkies into the mix to make sure that we have the best portfolio, because there will be different preferences by different people. And again, there will be different strengths. But as I sit here And I think about what we say and what I'm hearing as it relates to diversity when it comes to anything outside of making money. And to be clear, we are losing GDP every time we try to push back on this idea of diversity because all of us bring something different to the table. But you consistently said over and over the word oppression, and every time that you said it, it was almost as if I was hearing nails on a chalkboard because it seems like you don't understand the definition of oppression, and I'd ask you to just refer to Google to help you out. Oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That is the definition of oppression. And so as I sit here as a black woman who practiced civil rights, let me tell you the reason that my colleagues wanted to make sure you understood the same black history that your side of the aisle wants to delete out of classrooms is because you can then misuse words like oppression. There has been no oppression for the white man in this country. You tell me which white men were dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you are going to go and work. We are going to steal your wives. We are going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression. We didn't ask to be here. We not the same migrants that y'all constantly come up against. We didn't run away from home. We were stolen. So yeah, we are going to sit here and be offended when you want to sit here and act like, and don't let it escape you that it is white men on this side of the aisle telling us, people of color on this side of the aisle, that y'all are the ones being oppressed, that y'all are the ones that are being harmed. That's not the definition of oppression. You tell me the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment that you've had, and we can have a conversation.
I can't believe a person can be this ignorant. This is unbelievable. So this woman who says she's also a lawyer have no knowledge of history. She is totally unqualified to be here if she does not know that white people were slaves too. Blacks, Asians, Pacific Islanders, whites, yes, whites, Arabs, subcontinental Indians, natives, and indigenous people suffered slavery in their lives, all of them. Over 1 million Europeans were captured by Barbary pirates and sold as slaves in North Africa and the Ottoman Empire between the 15th and 19th centuries. The term slave has its origin in the word Slav. The Slavs who inhabited a large part of Eastern Europe were taken as slaves by the Muslims of Spain during the 9th century AD. Most of the early slaves were Europeans. 75% of the 17th century immigrants were indentured servants. She said, show me a white man that was dragged across the sea to be a slave. Well, I will show you the indentured slaves from Ireland and England that were driven out of their homes to America, and they were essentially enslaved. It is true that these indentured slaves had better luck in the sense that they were not born into slavery and they can be free after a certain period of time. But when you look at the condition they were in and the treatment they received, it is just the same thing as the slavery that black people went through. And besides, most of these people she is referring to as white men because she thinks they are descendants of the founding fathers are just other Europeans that immigrated into America over time. Most of these white people she's talking about are originally Irish, Polish, Swedish, French, Danish, etc. But because they have white skin, she sees all of them as slave owners and descendants of slave owners. I repeat, white people were slaves too. A little research on the history of slavery will tell you just that. And secondly, what does she mean when she said that they were stolen from their lands? Stolen. I am not even a senator or a lawyer, but I am well aware that my brothers and sisters who were enslaved back then were not stolen. They were sold by their own people. Most of these Africans have already been enslaved by other Africans back in Africa. So it wasn't a difficult thing for them to be sold to these white people in exchange for very stupid items. And those who were free in Africa had their communities raided by their own fellow Africans. Then they were captured and sold off to the white men. The white men didn't need to steal anybody because our greedy African forefathers did the dirty work themselves. So lady, get your facts right. And it is true that black people didn't ask to be in America, but if that is such a big issue, I'd like to remind you all that slavery have been abolished for centuries now. We all now have our freedom. So we are all free to relocate to the nearest African country of our choice and live our life to the fullest. Now, for the correct meaning of oppression, oppression is the unjust or malicious treatment of a group of people, or the exercise of power over them. And it can include restricting access. Those in power can restrict access to social, economic, and political resources. It involves deprivation. The oppressed group can be deprived of privileges and the ability to compete with other groups. Psychological impact. Subordinated groups can experience fear, stress, and negative views of themselves. Reverse racism and DEI have made white people the target of discrimination and government-sponsored operation. When white people are being denied a particular promotion or a particular opportunity in the company because they do not fit the diversity criteria, is that not an oppression? When white people are prevented from accessing certain spaces because they are safe spaces for black people and people of color, is that not oppression? When white students are made to believe that they are demons and inherently racist and made to have negative views of themselves, is that not a form of oppression? Psychological impact of oppression? These people are clearly biased in their views. They are selfish and only want to be treated preferentially at the expense of white people. They are so against an equal playing field, which is what this bill is asking for. Treat everyone accordingly and give rewards to people based on merit. If I am qualified to be a doctor, a lawyer, a policewoman, a student, CEO, then please give me that position. But do not give me that position simply because of the skin color I have, okay? What is so wrong and oppressive about that? These people are so quick to bring up the topic of slavery, to bring up the slavery that happened even before they were born. But you will never ever hear them mention the fact that it was white men who died for their sake during the Civil War to make sure that slavery was eradicated for good. And again, they never mentioned the fact that their ancestors fought against the abolishment of slavery because they were profiting from it. Their ancestors were profiting from it and they were solely, extremely against the abolition of slavery. Honestly, I support this bill. I want to see the end of DEI. I hate the fact that black people are classified as marginalized group. It is condescending. It is derogatory. We should all see that as an insult. I mean, what are we marginalized from? We are not missing any body part. We have brains. We are innovative. We are successful. When we set our mind to succeed, we have everything it takes to achieve greatness. So why do we regard ourselves as marginalized? I am totally in favor of this bill. I want to see the government prohibited from using tax dollars to fund DEI offices and trainings in federal agencies. People from all other races have the same number of heads that white people have, okay? White people do not have 2 heads. So I support an equal playing field because DEI is divisive and it needs to be dismantled. But these are my thoughts, these are my opinion, or you can disagree with me or agree with me, but do so respectfully in the comment section below. Again, if you're not subscribed to my channel, honestly, I do not know what you're waiting for. Subscribe to the channel, like and share this video to keep people informed, and consider joining my membership or buy me a coffee if you like, as a way of supporting the channel. Thank you for watching this video and I hope to catch you on the next one. For now, peace.